The moment you've all been waiting for. I was gonna say this for tomorrow, but I figured, nah, why not? I already got my list compiled together of my 10 favorite films of the year. And before we get to that list right now, before we get to that, give me 1 second real quick. Just gotta do some more things. Alright. Let me see. Okay. Oh, where's my book at? Oh, he's selling them. Okay. Give me 1 second. Have to find my whole list. Oh. Oh. Crap. Is my notebook everywhere? Yeah, I gotta do something about it. It's not it. I'm looking for the list. Okay, find the damn. Okay. There we go. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Alright. Yeah. Alright, guys, I'm back. So, like I was saying, getting back into my top favorite films of the year. Listen, this was a phenomenal year for movies from 2025. Man, I mean, we didn't got so many releases from uh, sci-fi, from comic book movies, from action, adventure, every which way possible. Before we get to my official top 10 list, let's go with some honorable mentions and some that did not make the cut. Obviously, we're gonna go with Companion. Definitely something that I was not expecting, played by Sophie Thatcher and of course Jack Quaid.
Hello, Moto.
Yeah, played by Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. Companion, that was really interesting. I like the twist that went on with it. It was more of like a visual piece an AI, um, about an AI companion robot that pretty much was being controlled and dictated throughout. I mean, that film was, and the twist I was not expecting, but that was very interesting to me. Um, Thunderbolts, another probably one of the more intriguing comic book movies of the year, talking about and discussing and tackling things of mental health and like anxiety and pressure, of what it be like as dealing with superheroism and protecting the world and protecting the environment, protecting the country and everything. So that goes with a lot of saying, and I really did like the cast. I thought Florence Pugh, I thought David Harbour, I thought Sebastian Stan as Bucky, I thought the character who played Ghost from the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie. I thought they all did great. Um, I thought the darker version of Steve Rogers, or I forget that guy's name, but off the top of my head. But I thought Thunderbolts really gave me something that a lot of gave me a little bit of hope for what Marvel was gonna go next in the direction from the next phase, from Phase 5 into Phase 6. So I thought that was pretty interesting and compelling. And then I would say Fantastic Four First Steps. I thought that was pretty interesting. A film that almost made my list that I really wanted to talk about that was a comedy drama film that came out a few months before the year ended and directed by Derek Cianfrance by the name of Roofman. And Channing Tatum plays this out of this former soldier and professional thief Jeffrey Manchester. Of course, at that time he was in a Toys R Us. He was hide out inside of a Toys R Us store. He ended up having to change his identity because he was wanted from the law. He was running by the law and running from the law and wanted by the law at the course. And of course, he also ends up falling for a divorced mom. Has to join them into a program. And the divorced mom, played by Kirsten Dunst, has two daughters. And of course, his life begins to unravel. He ends up having to play not only a cat and mouse game of survival, but having to play a cat and mouse game of not getting caught and not getting run back into by the law. But eventually, later on in that film, it happens the way it happens. But man, that was a really interesting film. And another film that almost made my best of the year list, The Long Walk. And The Long Walk, directed, story by J.T. Moeller, directed by Francis Lawrence. Man, that film almost made my list, and man, I wish it did because that was something special. The only reason why it didn't make my list, simply due to the fact that, and I didn't say this in the review, but if I would have read the book, as far as knowing and understanding the ending, I think I probably would have grasped the film a bit better to me. But basically, for those who did not know the story, it was 49 contestants. Teens participate in a high stakes contest where they must continuously walk or die or be shot by any other members of the military escort. And mainly one of the colonels of the military escort, played by Mark Hamill, assigns orders for this 309 long mile walk, which they all had to go upon. And yo, it was something special. It was something insane. It was something crazy. Like, because it was a lot of deaths and a lot of violence, but in ways in particular that you just couldn't even imagine. And man, I really had a good I really you were on the edge of your seat watching this film, and really it pertained it gave me a lot of indication of where where society is going to be at and where cinema is going to be at the end of the day, and where it's going to be taking place in such a form. And yeah, I definitely had a great time watching it, had a great time viewing an experience for it. And you were on the edge. You could not take any kind of break. You could not take any kind of you could not look away. You couldn't take any kind of break. You got it. You was sitting there. You was glued to your seat. You was really enriching on who was going to be the last remaining contestant on Survival, man. And I just want to give this big Otis an odd. And I think this is probably one of the better Stephen King adaptations that came out here. Of course, you had The Life of Chuck. Then, of course, you had the TV show It Welcome to Derry. But I think this is the best one of the. This is the better one of the Stephen King adaptations. So, definitely for a lot of people, if you have not seen The Long Walk, directed by Francis Lawrence and the story by J.T. Mullen, please check that one out. I highly recommend it enough. Now, let's get to the actual top 10, and we're starting at my number 10 film of the year. And all of these I've done movie reviews for. I'm not going to go into any brief detail like I do at the beginning point of the year. I round up all the films and I go through and really just go through a brief summary, and I go through a brief indicator of what my list could actually look like. So That's how I compile it. And pretty much the films that I've seen the most, rewatched the most, that's how I do it all the time. So my number 10 film actually, my number 10 film actually on the list is Christie. Christie by David Machoy. Um, of course, stars Sydney Sweeney as Christy Martin. I pretty much already knew the story about Christy Martin as far as her boxing career, but I never knew really a lot of the story about her personal life. I never really knew a lot about her personal life and really what was going on around in her circle, in her vicinity, like her family and like how they view and judge her and everything. And I didn't really know about, of course, her personal story with her, and of course her husband, ex-husband at later on in the film, and then of course around at the time was soon to be her trainer, Jim or James or Jim Martin, played by Ben Foster. I didn't know exactly how he was, and man, as she was in an abusive, toxic relationship, and the fact that she was still being able to stay and try to balance her boxing career and had the career record that she did, 47 wins and I think 9 losses. She had an incredible boxing career, a really salvaged career, was all in the press, was all in the headlines, but also with her own, dealing with her own husband, abusive ex-husband at the time, which was just painful to really like sit there and look at. It was a lot of bickering back and forth and tension that really was just had you just rooting for her all the way throughout, and really wanted somebody to take him down because he was just an a-hole. He was just having somebody that really just did not become stabilized, and she did not feel like she was safe in a stabilized household because he was just always there violently berating her all up in her face, all up in her grill, and really just made her kind of life outside of the ring very uncomfortable at times. And just seeing that was just insane. So a really good performance by Sydney Sweeney, really good performance by Jim A. Martin, uh, played by Ben Foster. Of course, the in-ring announcer, Don King, that's played by Chad Coleman. He really did a great job. Katie O'Brien, who was also one of Christy Martin's competitors in the film, she really came and returned the form. She did her thing. If you did not know, I think she was in Love Lies Bleeding, and she really did a good job there, just as much as she did a good job in here. So yeah, I like all the cast. I thought all the cast really did well, and I thought there was a lot going on, a lot of stakes, a lot of tension, and so yeah, it really did a lot for me as I was sitting there watching it. I love the music and the soundtrack as well. It really gave me everything that I wanted. All right. Coming in at number 9 on my list, we have is and coming in at number 9 on my list, we have is Dangerous Animals. Man, this was my biggest guilty pleasure film, and I seen this way earlier in the year, and it really captivated. It really capsuled to me what was already going to be. And I'm not a particular fan of shark movies, you know, as far as the more recent ones, and as far as like the spoof kind of shark movies like the Sharknado stuff that I really don't believe. But this one actually took me by surprise. I really did have a lot of enjoyment from it. And at the same time, it was a lot of brutal, a lot of violent scenes, a lot of gore scenes. Uh, and I believe this was directed by Sean Byrne, I believe. And he did a really good job with the direction here. Um, and if you don't know the story, I'll just explain this real quick. Of course, Hasey Harrison, who was one of the surfers, and then Josh Houston, who was one of the, who was also one of the surfers, was also was kidnapped and locked on this like boat dock. And Jai Courtney, who was his serial killer, goes by the name of Tucker, was kidnapping a bunch of like young sea sea surfers and seagoers, right? And he kidnaps them, hides them, and locks them down in the ship in a shipyard on his boat dock, in order to feed them, in order to feed the contestants, in order to feed them to these bloodthirsty sharks, bloodthirsty seeking revenge sharks out there on the sea docks. And man, I was just thoroughly surprised because of how insane and wild and bonkers and chaotic this film gotten over time. And it really just hit me into the core. Really took me in by surprise. And you really were capsulated by the moment and the tension, from really capsulated by the moment and the tension. And the reason why I was capsulated by that was because Saphir, like I was saying, was barely a sea surfer. And of course, Tucker, Jai Courtney, he was absolutely egomaniac, crazy, insane. He had all of everything, thinking that it was gonna go his way. He was feeding all those surfers that he kidnapped, these contestants, these sharks, and everything was gonna go in that direction. But it went in a direction where, I'm not gonna spoil it if you haven't seen it, but turns out what happened to him, he actually got what he deserved, because he was an absolute egomaniac. He was insane. He definitely gave it all and everything in his performance. Really, really solid and amazing job from him. So yes, Dangerous Animals, I had done a review for that earlier on in that year, 2025, and definitely was entertaining for me all the way through. Highly recommended if you have not seen it yet. And like how I go about my films, and like how I go about everything, it's definitely something that really was not only entertaining for me, but also something that I could constantly go back and rewatch and really take in something else, like taking a different message or taking a different theme. And sometimes guilty pleasure movies that also be tugging on the heartstrings for myself, depending on how it goes. All right, let's get into my number 8 film, and that, I can get a transition real quick, guys. Number 8 film is The Lost Bus. And The Lost Bus, directed by Paul Greengrass, stars Matthew McConaughey and America Ferrera. And Matthew McConaughey plays his character Kevin McKay. And this is on Amazon Prime if you have not seen it. He involves himself with these in this infernal saving these, has the job to assign to really save and rescue these 22 children that get caught in this infernal fire, which is on the other end of the Palisades, which is on the Palisades in the Palisades area, and from these California wildfires. And America Ferrera plays this counselor who is teaching these kids, teaching these children, and learning about the absolute chaos and melee that would happen earlier on in this out of town area, but closer to the Palisades area, man. And oh my God, this film really took me by surprise. It was a Wayward School bus driver, Kevin McKay, and of course another counselor, school teacher played by America Ferrera. And like I said, they had to, their job was, their mission was to rescue these children from this inferno fire and get them into safety. And for a moment there in the film, I didn't think they was gonna make it. They didn't really have any factor that was letting me know about what could be determined, what could be the case of mainly them actually going to survive. Will they survive? It was pretty much the big question. And man, throughout the film, was thoroughly moved. I didn't know much about this film even coming out. I had some recommendations from a few of my favorite online critics. Shout out to them. They recommended me this film, and I'm glad they did because this film really took me in by surprise. So definitely check out The Lost Bus. It's on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus. I definitely recommend it, and many, many more. My number 7 pick of my favorite films of the year is Warfare. Yes, Warfare. That was directed by, of course, and actually starred as one of the U.S. Navy SEALs by Ray Mendoza. And it stars, of course, Will Poulter, Joseph Quinn, Michael Gandolfini, Cosmo Jarvis, and Joseph Quinn. And also co-directed by Alice Garland. This was absolutely one of the most immersive films that I have seen all year long. Seen this multiple times, not just in the theater, but I also was watching it at the covers of my own home. But man, oh my goodness, it was so riveting. It was so captivating. It pretty much is a story about the Iraqian War, that came in the early 2000s, and pretty much they were assigned on this big encompassing mission to try to rescue, civilians that was in and locked in towards this Iraqi war, man. Holy cow. It really just captivated me to the core and struck me to the core. I was so immersed in this world. It was just very, very action heavy, very short too. It's only like an hour and 38 minutes runtime. Very short, but a lot of times when movies are very short, it keeps its own distance and it keeps its own foot forward. So I'm glad that I saw that film and it kept me to its core and strike me to its emotional core. Because I was wondering if these U.S. soldiers, and members was actually going to survive, was actually going to get out this territory, because you got a lot of Iraqi and terrorists that was lined up in several different directions, that was hitting them and it was striking them and shooting these guys going in left and right, man. Protect and serve, that was their responsibility, and they did that in so many ways. And yeah, I was definitely moved and touched and riveted by it, and it kept everything as far as the entertainment, the value, everything left and right, all the way together. So shout out to Ray Mendoza, who told this story also in an interview, and also shout out to Alice Garland, because they both did their fair share of job. Probably one of the best war films, probably one of the best war action films I've seen in the past 2 to 3 decades. I'm not kidding you. It was definitely that good. So check it out if you haven't seen it. It's on Apple TV. It's on it's A24 release as well. Definitely check it out. All right. Going to my number 6 film of the year. And a lot of people really kind of forgot this film. A lot of people kind of forgot about this film because it came out so early in the year. John Wick, from the world of John Wick Ballerina. Yeah, people forgot about this film. I don't see this film a lot on a lot of people's list. This was a top tier action film for me. And as a person who was a fan of the John Wick movies, uh, Lin Wise really did a great job with the direction. But man, we gotta give shout out to everybody from Michael Shannon, of course, Keanu Reeves as a Baby Yaga, Lance Reddick. I'm talking about Angelica Houston, Norma Reedus. Uh, oh, Gabriel Byrne as the Chancellor. But more or less, give a shout out to, of course, Eve Macaro, played by Ana de Armas. They all did an amazing job as far as the action, the cinematography, just the action set pieces, the fight choreography. It kept me entertained throughout the runtime, man. And I just remember being at AMC that past year, and man, it had me moved, it had me riveted, it had me all the way through, left and right, kept me focusing on, Eve McCall, if she was gonna find the truth about Roscoe Roma. Was she gonna find the truth not only about Roscoe Roma, was she gonna find the truth about, why her father was really murdered by the Chancellor? And we turned out that it was some more than just about getting revenge for her father. It was actually trying to make a really point and send a brief message about not things not being tolerated. And it definitely gave me that indication all the way throughout, man. Definitely entertaining film for me. High octane action, high octane stakes. But that is my number six film. Yes, Ballerina for the World of John Wick. I definitely recommend you guys checking this one out. It's not in the theaters anymore, of course. It's on streaming platforms. Uh, whatever streaming platform you have the most, I would definitely put this in your recommendation and y'all recommendation feeds for the ones who is watching. So yeah, definitely that is my number six pick. Now, getting to my top five. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting to the top five. And my number five pick is a Netflix film, and I had no idea about this film even coming out. And that goes by the name of Train Dreams. Train Dreams, starring Joel Edgerton, Kerry Condon, Felicity Jones, Will Patton, and William H. Macy. And pretty much it centers and focuses around Robert Grainer as he lives in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. He works on new land. He works on new refinery. He's more of like a butcher. He's cutting down trees and forests in the forests of the Northwest. He's trying to create another world and a life and another world for his family. And he really encapsulates the life of a hardworking man. And it's very sad. It's very sad, very melancholy, and very depressing of a watch. So it's not the easiest watch for everybody. It's not the easiest. It's not the easiest film to really tackle, but it gives you so much tension. It gives you so much grasp on finding the little things and finding the things in life that really will satisfy you, that really will gratify you, that really will keep you, that will keep you going and keep on grinding and keep on working hard to try to get to your goal and your dreams and your destiny and your opportunity where you're at. My life is not always like a box of chocolates. It's always throws the sense of fires at you. It definitely threw a sense of fires at Robert Grainer, man. Definitely threw a sense of fires. And shout out to Joel Edgerton because he really played and portrayed Robert Grainer very well, the character very well. And this is also based on true events and a story of a railroad worker, and he pretty much is trying to continue his life in a way where he doesn't have to work so hard to keep struggling to try to feed his family, to try to be better just for himself. And I really enjoyed that about this film. Kept me on the edge of my seat, man. I really enjoyed it all the way around. Definitely check out Train Dreams if you have not on Netflix. If you got Netflix, please check this one out. I highly recommend it. One of my bigger slept on films of the year. I thought all the performances, like I said, were brilliant. And like I said, It's not the easiest watch. So go into it with very modest expectations. Don't go into this film expecting anything different like an action film. You're not gonna get that. Just go into it, really sit down, really pay attention, and really understand the messaging, not just the story, not just the concept, which is very simple. Not just that. Listen to the messaging and how it was driven home, because I recommend that. It really hits you where it goes. So that was my number 5 pick for anybody who just joined the chat for my favorite films of the year. Oh, hey guys, how's it going? Wiggly, Irene, and Riley Gibbs, 7, how's it going? But yeah, that was my number 5 pick of the year. So my number 4 pick, as we're transitioning. Now, again, it's going to consist of a lot of variety selections, some that haven't been seen before. Now, this film kind of came out of nowhere for me because I had no idea about this film at all. And shout out to a few other channels that really recommended this film to me as well. But also, it was on my timeline because it came out in August, the same month as Weapons, which is not on my list, by the way, if I didn't mention that already. But 40 Acres, the sci-fi thriller by the name of 40 Acres, of course, stars Daniel Day-Waller, Lena Robinson, Michael Greyes, and directed by Jennifer Hollinas. Produced by Jennifer Hollinas and directed by, of course, RT. It's basically Haley Freeman, played by Daniel Day-Waller. She is helping out. Her and her son are pretty much trying to get from a bunch of plagues and wars. A former soldier and her family make one stand against a vicious militia that wants to take back their land, their 40 acres land, like 40 acres and a mule. So that's what they're trying to do. Haley Freeman and her son and the rest of the family are trying to get away from this group of local militia, and they're trying to survive on their way to getting away from them. And this is also taking place in events of the I believe the Civil War, excuse me. And this is like centered around in the 1800s, I believe. And yeah, man, this was a absolute banger of a film that I highly recommend a lot of you guys to check out. Daniel Day-Waller, yeah, she's been in plenty of films, from The Piano Lesson, from the other movie from Steven Soderbergh that came out in 2025, The Black Bag, and then The Woman in the Yard. But this is her best performance to date, because you really set focus around her, Michael Greyes, and you really center focus all around them, and the rest of the family. Man, her performance as Haley Freeman was riveting, was captivating. She just had a lot of badassery, had a lot of really good stakes, really good tension. It was center focused on everything left and right, and it really makes you feel something. It really, really makes you feel something all the way around. So that is my number 4 pick of 2025, is 40 Acres. And it's also on, I believe this is on Hulu. Yeah, I believe this is on Hulu. So if you have that, please go check it out. And this came out during the same time as Weapons. And I believe this came around during the same time as another film. I cannot think of the name right now. It's drawing a blank. So that's why this film did not get the kind of buzz and did not get the kind of publicity and recognition. But yes, check it out. It's really good. I highly recommend it. All right. Let's go to number 3. And my number 3 film, and I've been going back and forth between 3 and 2. So 1 minute I had it right on the money, but then the next minute I was thinking like, oh, like this has to be it. And I don't become prisoner of the moment of films, but I'm sorry, man. Marty Supreme has to be number 3 on my list of my favorite films of the year. Holy cow, is this good? And I just did a review for this like upcoming days ago. So if you have not seen Marty Supreme, I'm just going to give a brief summary, and then we're going to get to the top 2 films. All right. So Marty Supreme is is a film where we tackle Marty Mauser, who has his dreams of dreaming big and has his big goals and opportunities of becoming one of the world's greatest table tennis players of all time. And if you're not on that same line, or you're not in the same boat, not in the same thinking of his mind, as far as him wanting to dream big, accomplishes his dreams, then he's pretty much going to ostracize you, pretty much going to kick you to the curb. Kick you to the curb. And throughout the film, he's pretty much back and forth. And I like the fact in this film they explain a lot more about Japanese culture. But he's going back and forth. He completes in the British table tennis opening tournament against different cultures, different ethnic cultures, race cultures, but mainly Japanese cultures. And he had his big competition with Kato Endo, and he lost the actual tournament. And he spent so much time trying to make money. He started off as a shoe salesman, but that didn't go as the plan. So when he missed that opportunity, and trying to steal from his own kind, his own family, didn't work out the way it didn't work out. So he ends up going and tries to go on his journey to be one of the world's best table tennis players. He ends up really ignoring the sport, but along the way, him and his good friend, played by Tyler Creator, as Wally, goes along this journey with him. Wally is a cab driver, taxi cab driver. Then he ends up meeting along, of course, his girlfriend Rachel ends up being like 8 months pregnant. Then you saw what happened with him. A family matter situation had to, it was taking the life. He was trying to balance and juggle his life with being a professional ping pong player, then at the same time balancing the life of being a family man. And then at the same time being broke and not being able to afford to pay for living in housing at time. So being into this sports and being in this ping pong tournament, he wasn't making a whole lot of money whatsoever at all, really, but willing to compete and willing to do anything to really set out his big accomplishments and goals. And Timothée Chalamet gave his best performance he's gave in his entire career, probably since Call Me by Your Name, and probably since the movie The King. I think that's The King. And so that he probably gave his best performance since those films. Yeah, he was outstanding. The lines, the delivery, the dialogue, the range, and the emotion, he really gave that to you. And not just him, but he was the standout, obviously. But Kay Stone, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, was great. I'm talking Tyler Creator was really good. Odessa Zion, who I believe I've seen her in another show and seen her in a TV show. I cannot remember the show right now, but she was great. Even Kevin O'Leary, who was in Shark Tank, he plays Milton Rockwell. He was great in the film as well. I just thought everybody had their own moment to shine. Even other former legendary star NBA players, from George Gervin to Tracy McGrady, they did their thing, man. Shout out to all of them. They really did a great job. But like I said, the movie was center focus on Timothée Chalamet's Marty Mauser, and he did a great job. And so that is at my number 3 film. So I think we're going to get to the top 2 pretty much sooner rather than later. And then my number 2 film of the year is, and I was just watching this film several days ago, One Battle After Another. This film is just gold, cinematic gold. If you want to know what cinema is really looking like, you definitely need to check this film out if you have not checked it out. This film was amazing. I mean, not just from the direction from Paul Thomas Anderson, that's one thing. I'm talking from the whole group. So basically, if you don't know, which I'm pretty much sure you don't know, you haven't seen it, my goodness, what is going on? But yeah, is this center focusing around Bob Ferguson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, him and his group of people, Primity, played by Tiana Taylor, Regina Hall, his daughter, played by Chase Infinity as Willa Ferguson. they are all, and also Wood Harris is in this film. They all lead this group of the called the French 75, and they're pretty much they're rebellious. They're anti-government officially, anti-government official because this local government, and led by the Colonel Stephen L. Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn. They're pretty much holding migrants. They're holding migrants and they're holding immigrants locked and captive, especially uh, as they're as they're refugees transferring over into the country, transforming over into America, held underneath and against their will. Man, this film was such a absolute banger of a film, man. The casting was brilliant, and also one of the coaches, one of the trainers, martial arts trainers, played by Del Toro, also he gives probably one of the more standout performances as well, because he just, like I said, the range, the emotion, and the dialogue, and also the range and emotion from Bob Ferguson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who pretty much will probably be nominated for best actor in a leading role. He'll probably be up there in that category. But Benicio del Toro should be best supporting actor as well. He should be up there because he had a really great performance as well. Another really big and huge standout to me. Um, and they're going back out, and once Bob Ferguson and once his daughter, they end up changing their names. They moved away from the area. I believe they was in Missis I forget what city they were in. Hold on. Oh, I don't even show me. But anyways, I believe they were in the city of Chicago. So let's just say that. But depending on how that goes, um, yeah, basically once they changed their names, once Willa and Bob Ferguson, once they changed their name, and they moved on and moved away from the city. I believe they was in Chicago at the time, and yeah, once they moved away and moved across the coast, and they pretty much were trying to stay away because Colonel Stephen L. Lockjaw was hell bent, and he was hell bent on actually trying to find his long lost daughter, which he believes his daughter is his and not Bob Ferguson at all. That's what he believes. So he's pretty much hell bent on going after anybody uh, who was a former member, who was anybody that was connected to Willa, anybody that was connected to Bob Ferguson, anybody that's connected to all the way around, to go after them in order to capture them, in order to find out the truth, do a DNA test, do a sample, and do a test on who would actually be, his, you know, his daughter. And this film takes you on an absolute journey, and also it sends a really good message and a direct message on the American culture, the economy. It really fits into the mold of where we are at in the society in the world, and it just puts you in a bind. It really takes encapsulates everything. Yeah, I'm doing something right now, brother. I'm doing something right now. But yeah, it really takes you on a journey and encapsulates you into that world. So great film all the way around. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Highly recommended. One battle after another. If you have not seen it, I don't know how, but please check this film out. I highly recommend it. Definitely one of my favorite films of the year. Seen this multiple times. I cannot recommend it enough. Might go back and watch it again. But yeah, no, definitely that. And so that leads to my number one film of the year, which is, I don't think there's no surprise that my number one film of the year has to be Sinners. Sinners is my number one film of 2025. And let me tell you the reason why this was my number one film of the year. And it still remained my number one film of the year, even throughout all of the incredible films that came out from this month of April, from May, June, all the way towards December to the end of the year. It still remained my number one film of the year. Let me tell you why. Number one, number one we'll get to Ryan Coogler and the direction in a minute. But the acting performances from Michael B. Jordan playing two characters, Stack and Smoke, and he didn't realize Stack and Smoke is like the angel and the devil. Like they playing two different parallels. Like Stack is pretty much condescendingly a shrewd operator. He don't believe, he doesn't really look, and it's not really aware of his surroundings. While Smoke, on the other end, is very much aware of everything that's around him. Very aware of culture, very aware of the musicality. While pretty much Stack on his end was pretty much he was pretty much trying to become this wealthy millionaire. He was trying to, live a lot of it in riches. And that's two different distinctive personalities, and Michael B. Jordan executed those well. Let's talk about, of course, Delroy Lindo. He really did a great job. And also Miles Catton as Preacher Boy Sammy. He really did a great job as far as playing the guitar. He did a great job. The music and how he was singing, his vocal range, he really did a great job. I thought, of course, Haley Steinfeld did a really solid job in here. Just the film really was talking so much about the historical context in Black culture, and really was depicting that in Black culture, and really did its just due on not only depicting that. So it wasn't just a vampire film, wasn't just a horror film. It was a historical musical period piece that really tackles so much about racial context, social construct, and Black culture, and so many elements and so much more. And it really took me aback. So that is my number one film of 2025. And that is my top 10 list for anybody that did not see it. You can go back and watch the video. All right, and we got a few more lists left to go. But yes, this is my top 10 films of 2025. I can't wait for 2026 because there's going to be so many great things to come out. So yes, thank you all for watching. I'm out. Peace. And we'll see you next time.